Welcome to the Salome Trust Initiative. My name is Sampo Salome Monsa Chilambwe, the CEO and proprietor of the Salome Trust Initiative. As an entrepreneur, we are constantly looking for content and ways to navigate this entrepreneurship jungle. It is for this reason that we decided to partner with the Entrepreneur's Startup Guide so as to provide you live content from entrepreneur greats such as Dumisani, Mark Townsend, and Jito Kayumba, to mention a few. This is from our hearts to you so we can help you navigate the entrepreneurship jungle. So don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and leave a comment down below if you too want to find out how you can belong to the Entrepreneur Startup.
Oh, thank you.
All right, do remember, for those who just joined us, we'll be able to have a Q&A session as the event continues. We're also live on the Salome Trust Initiative YouTube channel. So streaming live, you can get to also share the link and let people know that this is where it is happening and this is where we're having our discussion from the Quorum Hotel in Lusaka. I know you just come through. There's a bottle of water here. I know you don't drink, but in case you want to try maybe the first time today, there's some Stella Artois here. You can have a drink. But let's start off from the name itself, Radical Entrepreneur. I know you and I have had so many of these discussions before, we've held these conversations, but for those who are hearing about this for the first time and do not know much about your story, let's start off with the term Radical Entrepreneur. What exactly is this all about?
Hi, good evening. Good evening. I hope you're having a good time here. The Radical Entrepreneur, as the term indicates, radical means drastic change. So the radical entrepreneur is one who brings about drastic change in line with entrepreneurship. So my approach to entrepreneurship has been quite radical. It has been out of the normal, hence the name, the Radical Entrepreneur. There are certain crazy things that I've done, really. Like, take for instance, around 2010, thereabout, I took on a trip. So now here's something interesting. I heard that motorbikes are cheap in Mozambique, and I've shared this before. Motorbikes are cheap in Mozambique. And then, the cheapest motorbike in Zambia was by Honda Zambia, which was like 15,900. Then Yamaha was about 24,000. Suzuki, it was about 34,000 then. So all these funny models were not there. So one man wanted a motorbike. Then I told him, well, I can supply you one for 8,000 kwacha. Why? Because I heard that they are cheap in Mozambique. Then I told him to say, listen up, you can pay me 5,000. I'll deliver the bike. Then you pay me the balance of the 3,000. Well, he agreed. I mean, 8,000 against 15. So he gave me the 5,000, got on a bus to Chanida border, to Katete, Chanida border, from Chanida border, go to a place called Tete. For the first time, in a truck that side. Getting to Tete, I truly found motorbikes to be really cheap. Yeah, like super cheap. Though they were smaller than the usual ones that we normally use here. Then after negotiations, I managed to buy one. Then from the way one was marketing the bike, he said, you see, with the 1 liter of fuel, you can cover 150 kilometers. I said, what did you say? 1 liter of fuel, 150 kilometers. Then I calculated the kilometers back to Zambia. Then I realized that it was cheaper riding the bike back to Zambia than putting it on a bus or a truck. But there's a problem. I've never ridden a bike before. Then I told the guy to say, can you show me how to ride? And then he just shows me, brake, clutch. I said, okay, fine. Lead me to the road leading to Zambia. Then he takes me there. For the very first time riding, I was riding a bike on my way back to Zambia. Learning on the way, changing gears, I learned on my way riding back to Zambia. But of course, unfortunately, after covering 204 kilometers, I just saw oil on my feet. Unfortunately, it had actually broken down. Yeah, only later discovered that that was a national park and I would have been hammered by lions. So anyway, my approach to entrepreneurship has been radical. So the steps that I've always been taking are those radical ones. Hence the name, the radical entrepreneur.
All right, nice. Oh, that's a very interesting one. I know you've got a very interesting journey. Looking at some of your interesting stories like that one. I was watching some of the stories you told. For example, you being robbed, your capital, you had a transport business in itself. But let's take it back to your childhood. What about your childhood would you say inspired the person that you are today? What about it would you say gave you the drive to just consider entrepreneurship? I know you're also an accountant by profession, but just tell us about your childhood and how this created the person you are now.
I never thought I would be an accountant to begin with, so I had no dreams of being an accountant. And by the way, I used to make fun of those that were doing courses like accountancy and all such courses. Why? Because I believed I was a scientist. My wish was to become an engineer. That was my dream. But well, fate led me to become an accountant. So now getting back to my childhood, I never thought of being an entrepreneur. I was introduced to entrepreneurship circumstantially. So here's a case, born at a village, like typical village, thatched house, no electricity, that kind of a setup. In fact, I like saying that we were really poor, but not just poor, but we are so poor such that the poor called us poor. That is how bad it was. So growing up from that kind of an environment, primary school, we were taught in Nyanja, taught in Nyanja. And in fact, even English itself, we were taught in Nyanja. That's how bad it was. So then, well, I fared pretty well, then got to Matero Boys Secondary School. So academically, I was pretty good because I was the highest in that grade 7 intake, coming from grade 5. So I was in grade 5, then skipped to grade 6, got to grade 7, but I was still the highest. Got to Matero Boys, which has a very high cutoff point. Now, getting to that school, it is only then that I realized that it seems life is really different here. Number one, the boys that side could speak English. And not just speak English, but they would speak very fast. Now, for me, it was like, oh my goodness me, where have I come to? Then number two, I realized that our backgrounds are totally different. Because in the village, most of you are poor, so life is normal. But that side, these guys would buy Apple Max and a pie literally at break time and at lunch time, every day. And I couldn't understand that. Why? Because for us, eating at break time was a luxury. We remained studying during lunchtime, not that we were so serious with school, but because circumstantially, we just had to. So it was at that point that I realized that life was totally different. Because in the village, life looked normal. But now I realize that we are at different levels. So at that point, then I decided to say, well, I need to see how we can save ourselves from this. So it was from that then I began enterprising in a small way. Like simple things, if we have schoolwork, I could help you do it for a little charge. And then I would also buy a pie during break time. So it was from those little monies that I began making that then I thought, okay, fine, I can truly make money as well. Then the breakthrough was through a geography pamphlet. Those that were interested in the materials that I was utilizing, I told them, listen up, I can give you this pamphlet. I can photocopy it for you. So pay me, and then I'll deliver it the following day. So then what I then decided to do was I talked to someone from City Market who had a very good photocopying machine for a very good price. So when they pay me, I would photocopy, then deliver the following day for a profit. So from those little profits, then I realized that money is nice. From then on, I began thinking that I think it would be nice to be making this money again and again and again. I think that was the motivation for me to become an entrepreneur, from those little profits.
You have the professional background of being an accountant, and this is something that a lot of people would probably want to go for, to be on the safe side, because you have that secure income at the end of the month or after a certain period of time. At what point did you realize that this is not what you were meant for, and you deserve to be at the entrepreneurship side?
All right, so very interesting question. How did I even get to become an accountant? It was circumstantial. Here's a little story. Maybe I may not have shared this. So after grade 12, my wish was to become a civil engineer. Applied at UNZA, applied at CBU. Unfortunately, I did not get the bursary. So from the funds that I had, it was not enough, because then I was sponsoring myself. It was not enough to take myself to the University of Zambia. And like in our case now, I think the University of Zambia, in the School of Natural Sciences, they should be charging 30-something thousand per year, which was quite a lot still then. Now putting pieces together, then I thought of doing what is known as power electrical. And the funny thing is I began with this school here. Is it Lusaka Trades? So it was 2 years for a power electrical certificate. Got there, first month, second month, I did there 2 years theory. And when I would write there to my test, I would literally get everything correct. So then I requested that I write the second year exams in the first year. Then they said, no, we cannot allow you to. But I said, listen up, you look at the results. But they didn't allow me to. So that led to frustration. Then I thought, okay, fine, what is it that I can do? Going to NOTEC, and the way the schedule was that if I covered 2 years at Lusaka Trades, then I would have to go to NOTEC and cover 3 years to get that diploma. So 2 plus 3, that's 5 years. Then from NOTEC, if I go to the University of Zambia or Copperbelt University, I might have to cover another 4 years. So meaning which is a total of 9 years. But remember, after each school, there is a year to apply. So meaning it would have taken me 12 years to get a degree using that route. So for me, I realized that, no, maybe this is not the perfect route. That is when I then entertained the thought of, a business course. I saw an advert from a certain college called ZipZip. So they were advertising business administration under CBU, a 2-3 years program. So I was like, okay, fine, something under CBU. So that's how I got to ZipZip. And it's a store on its own. But then after the first semester, I could not sit for my exams because I did not have money. Then I thought that, okay, fine, I needed something that would make me write exams without attending classes. Why? Because that diploma in business administration called for continuous assessment. So meaning I needed to be there. So that's how I then got to Zika. Because I could sit for exams even without getting in school. So that's how I found myself in accounts. Of course, master's, it is in business administration at UNILAS. So from ZipZip, then I got to Zikas and whatnot. So the rest is history. So the way I found myself in accounts, it was not that I really wanted to become an accountant. My wish was to become an engineer. And that is why when I had an opportunity to employ, one of the first companies that I decided to create was the construction business, where I then employed, I think then we had the workforce in excess of 300 in 2018, in excess of 300. And I felt nice whenever I was interviewing engineers, especially those that did civil engineering. I felt so nice. So when they would sit that other side, and I'm this side interviewing them, it would feel so nice. Like, I know I wanted to be where you are, but hey, listen up, I'm here.
That's a good one.
Yeah. So did you actually practice after completing with account study?
No. I think from then on, life got better in line with business, because by the time I was 20, we then formed, the first IT company, which is Glad Tidings Software Limited, which is the most used, which did the most used school management system in the country, called Glad Tidings eSchool. So 3 out of 5 schools in the country are using our package. So I think by the time I was 20, I was, becoming independent. By the time I was 23, I had all these tracks. So I saw no need to be employed.
So were you doing this just for the sake of having an academic background, just papers to fall back on, as the common phrase is said?
Oh yes. And in fact, even from the master's, I might be doing my PhD for a simple reason: to tell those who are educated academically that, you see, you can be this educated and become an entrepreneur. Because there's a notion that, which is pretty well changing, but there has been a notion that those who become entrepreneurs are those that have failed academically. So that is the notion that I want to change. So if I go for even going for my master's, there was no need to, because even some of the lecturers, should I say they are fans? But yeah, like, I inspire them, and I've actually heard it a couple of times. Even in the lecture room, they say, you see, this young man, and why? Because they are inspired in line with entrepreneurship. In fact, even after lectures, they also come to learn one or two things. So I'm not going there to get a job, but I'm going there to basically have the capacity to stand in front of those who are learned and tell them, say, listen up, you can be learned and become an entrepreneur.
My next question is in line with that. How important is the academic qualifications or academic background when one wants to get into entrepreneurship? I ask this also because last month our key speaker was the CEO of Liquid Telecom, previous business development manager a business enterprise manager at MTN in Mark Townsend. And believe it or not, he actually revealed on this particular platform that he actually ended as far as week 12, and he's the CEO of Liquid Telecom there. But how important is the academic background, especially for the tertiary side of things, if one wants to at least elevate in the world of entrepreneurship?
All right, so I think let me give these two dimensions. So the first dimension is that I have no problem with academic qualifications. It is fine. You see, one who has undergone academic qualification is well placed to articulate and think at a certain level. If you put two people, one who has gone through academic training, there is pressure there, assignments and all such things. One who's undergone that, if put on the other end to become an entrepreneur, there are very high chances that he would be better placed than one who has no formal education. Why? Because the level of reasoning changes with education. I don't know if you're getting that. There's a way that academic pressure prepares your mind to handle pressure out there. So it is okay. One can be a degree holder. What that simply shows is that one is trainable. So I have nothing against academic qualifications. Putting two people with equal opportunities, one who has proper education and one who doesn't have, one who has proper education has chances of succeeding more. I think so. Why? Because the way you would run your business is in a totally different level. I have a certain uncle who has no formal education, and he was running, buses. Maybe let me not mention the number of buses because maybe you might end up knowing him. But these big Marco Polo buses, the big ones. So he grew his business. Then he married a certain lady who had a stepchild. Now, because he could not understand paper issues, he then had to utilize the stepson to do the signing of the papers and everything else. Then, unfortunately, they divorced with the wife. Then after divorcing, things got to court and whatnot. But at the point of giving, wealth, he ended up owning a lot of wealth. I mean, the buses, the houses, and everything else. Then what does the mother do? The ex-wife uses the son now. What then is unearthed was that the ownership of the company actually was the son's. So that is what lack of education does. And the way you run your businesses, it is also a little otherwise. But notice one thing. Education is not limited to formal education. There is formal education and informal education. So if you are to become outstanding, get education, be it formal or informal. And by the way, informal education never ends. And that is the one that you should pursue. Reading books, watching content that can actually build you, all that is education. So I have nothing against education. And by the way, just as a way of sharing, formal education had a very good place. Well, it still has a very good place, but it no longer guarantees success. Because if you look back in the days when our parents said, go to school, get a job, and become successful, they were right. Because back then, Zambia had 2 universities, the Copperbelt University and the University of Zambia. So if you graduated in the 90s, a job was already waiting for you. But 27 years later now, getting a job has become extremely difficult. Why? Zambia has in excess of 50 universities, offloading thousands of graduates every year. So now getting a job has become very, very difficult. In fact, even courses that guaranteed you a job, take for instance, education. If you graduated as a teacher around 2000, a job would be waiting for you. But now it is no longer the case. You graduate as a teacher, you might have to wait. In fact, with your qualification, you do not qualify to apply, because the government says only those that graduated maybe 3 years earlier should then apply. And in fact, in 2018, 54,000 applied, only 2,000 were picked. Later, 27,000 applied, only 2,009 were picked. Now it is clear, if you graduated with a degree in education, if you don't use shortcuts, and at the rate people are being employed, you have to wait for at least 50 years before you are employed, without shortcuts. And now you might think, now that is just about education. No, it is just about teachers. Lawyers from 2018, when 300 were called to the bar, getting a job as a lawyer has become difficult. And that is why we have lawyers that have been called to the bar, passed yearly, getting as low as 1,500 kwacha. Well, that is if they even have something to get. That is how bad things are. And you might think, no, maybe that is just lawyers. I'll take you to the creme de la creme. Doctors, 7 years in class. Back then, once you're in your 6th, 7th year, you are assured of a future. But now, doctors are forming committees to vie for them to be posted. And those that had graduated in 2018, we are just posted now, December 2018, we are just posted late last year. And thanks to COVID, those are medical doctors. Now you who did anthropology, studying insects, let us keep waiting. So tables have changed. So now it is about time that we then got to realize that, we need to monetize our skills. So entrepreneurship is no longer a luxury. It is a necessity. We then need to see how we can position ourselves. Yeah.
And speaking of making people position themselves in the world of entrepreneurship, you've been able to establish the DLN Entrepreneurship Institute. We had Chipo come through and just give a bit of some information of what it's all about. Tell us about the path leading on to the creation of the Institute. Why did you think it was very imperative that you create this and get to mentor so many young people who are interested in entrepreneurship?
All right, so I'll share a little story on what led me to begin sharing all these things to do with entrepreneurship. But before I get to that one, let me say one thing. We seem to be in a serious crisis as a country. You see, we are a capitalist economy, but with a communist thinking. Let me break it down for you. A capitalist economy is one that is, controlled by profits. Those that thrive are those that are enterprising, those that are willing to stand out, those that are willing to push. That's a capitalist economy. A communist economy, things are owned by the government and they are distributed clearly. So, back in the days, during the Kaunda era, we were more in a communist economy, where the government owned and did run most of the industries. So everything was at the center of the government. And that is why those that needed to get education were sent for education by the government, were sponsored by the government. And our parents were getting books from the government, free exercise books, because it was an economy that embraced that. Of course, that also had its own challenges, because in that kind of an economy, you are not really expected to own so much as individuals. That is why those that had radios and TVs really had to prove how they bought those, because that is the kind of an economy. Now, we moved from that economy to a capitalist economy, but the thinking has remained that of a communist economy. That is why, on everything, we want to blame the government. Boma Yanganepo. It's like you can't do anything, we can't achieve anything until the government does something. Now, that is wrong. The kind of an environment that you are operating now is more of a capitalist one. It is up to you as an individual to make the change. So as such, it calls for us to own up and man up and realize that the future is in our hands and not continue waiting, no, Boma Yanganepo, Boma Yanganepo. Now, with that said, I owned up, and the story of me beginning to share about entrepreneurship began in 2015, when I first traveled to France. So now here was the village boy, and I've shared this with you. Here's the village boy, the first time arriving in Paris, getting there, super excited, and I told people.
This is a very interesting story, by the way.
I told people in home from the village, said, no, listen, I'm traveling to Europe, self-sponsored as a businessman. The business has grown. Getting in Paris for the first time, getting to the immigration officers, the lady is holding my passport. Then she questions me, so where are you from? Of course, that was a ridiculous question, because, how would you ask me where I'm from when you're holding my passport? So I said, Zambia. What are you here for? I said, I'm here for a business meeting. From which company? I said, DLN Technologies. Who are you there? I said, I'm the CEO. Then she looked at me with so much suspicion, okay. Then she had all these many requests. So where is the invitation letter? Okay, here. Hotel booking, here. Bank statements. I said, well, for the bank statements, I do not have. But you are supposed to have them. Then I said, well, I saw no need to be moving around with a bulk of, documents. But I submitted those when requesting for the visa. It was adamant that, I needed to have that. Then she led me to the supervisor. Now, getting to the supervisor, they communicate in French. Then the supervisor requests for the same things. Where is the bank statement? Then I told the supervisor to say, you see, when you are at a university, you have an identity card and a student number. When entering a lecture hall with an identity card and a student number, it is folly. It is foolishness for the lecturer to ask you for your grade 12 results and your acceptance letter. Why? Because for you to have an identity card and a student number is enough proof that you've passed through the whole registration process. So I saw no reason to be moving with a bulk of bank statements. But the visa you are seeing on my passport is indication that I passed through the whole process. And then I was like, no, we can't take you on. We might have to put you on the next available flight back to Zambia. Now, then my thinking at that point is that this is how Africans are ill-treated. This is how we are not fairly treated. So at that point, it was nothing to do with me alone. It was about, my country and Africa as a whole. So I said, no, I will sue you. Of course, I didn't know how to sue, and I never sued. And you see some of these things that you just threaten people, say, no, I will sue you. So, but lucky enough, they have a very good system that side. Entered court documents, and I was set to appear in court in 3 days' time. So since I could not be held at the airport, I was taken to a Red Cross center in a police vehicle with people who had guns there, one vehicle in front, the other one behind with sirens. That's how I was taken to the Red Cross center. Getting that side, they actually grabbed my laptop, phone, and that's how I was thrown in. For the first time getting there in that kind of a situation. 3 days later, I appeared in court for the very first time in my life in Paris. And luckily, at that point, I had received an email of the bank statements. So the judge looked at the bank statement and the visa. The words that she said were, you see, you shouldn't have held this person. Number one, the visa is authentic. Number two, the kind of money that he makes in his country, he cannot possibly make it here. So you had no right to actually hold him. Then I was released by the courts. Now, being released by the courts, if you looked at my passport, the first time I actually entered France, it was not stamped. Why? Because I was released by the courts. But something rang in my head. The time I was being held at the airport, people that are coming from well-to-do countries, no questions. They just get there, they're allowed in. No questions at all. But because I come from a third world country, I had to be treated that way. Then I realized one thing. Making it alone is not enough. We need to make it as a team. Because if we make it as a team, that is the only way they will respect us out there. So it was from that trip that I decided that I'll need to see how I can build others. So this is where the whole thing of sharing on entrepreneurship insights, how I made it and whatnot, began from. So the Institute is just one of the products, because I believe we need to rise as a continent and as a country. Yeah.
You missed out on the. There's a part where you once
Spoke about feeling like you are the revolutionary while you're in France. You felt like you're going to represent every black person while you're there. But from that, I mean, that in itself is probably like a challenge for you.
Yeah.
And I know you've got part of your story talks about your transport business, you got robbed. But what would you say have been the major challenges through your journey leading on to now?
All right. So the major challenges, setbacks or challenges?
Both.
Okay, interesting. So I've had very interesting setbacks in my journey. 2010 being robbed in South Africa of all my capital actually. That was 12th March 2010. 2014, in fact, 2013 farming season, or maybe for those that may not know the story. From the pamphlets part, when I got back to the village, I began, trading, running a kiosk. From a kiosk, I began trading in goats, buying goats from the villages to sell at, not Kanyama, Chivolia. Trading in goats. Then when I got done with my secondary education, when I was just 17, I embarked on my first trip to Botswana to buy duvets. So then from duvets to clothes, I began getting to South Africa. So the business had actually, grown. But on the 12th of March, 2010, that capital that I had, I was robbed in South Africa at Park Station. And that was at knife point. All the money was gone. And I've shared this, that the only money that survived from that robbery was money that was in my inner pocket. Of course, don't ask me which inner pocket. Just know that it was in my inner pocket. So from that change that remained, it was enough for transport back to Zambia with a little change. So from the little change, I then decided to buy myself a white suit to remind myself that I was once a businessman. So when I got back to Lusaka with my white suit, that was the end of that journey. Then 2012, 2013, I made a massive loss in a tomato project. And you see, I got back to the village, invested in tomatoes. 2013, I was picking every week a minimum of 500 crates of tomatoes. Every 2 weeks, it was 1,000 crates of tomatoes, minimum. So meaning, for the price that tomatoes were going for in 2012, the same period, it was 150 kwacha. So meaning I should have been making 150,000 kwacha, every 2 weeks. So meaning a month I should have been making a 300,000 kwacha. But the unthinkable happened. A crate of tomatoes, 2013, February, March, this same period at Soweto Market, it was 7 kwacha, a full crate of tomatoes. Transport to Soweto Market, 6 kwacha. People picking at the farm, 1 kwacha. And, crates are owned by people at Soweto Market who get a commission. So it was better to leave tomatoes in the field than picking them. Because if you pick them, you remain owing the transporter. So that was a massive total loss. Wow. 2014, my newly added truck, this 30-ton truck, was involved in a tragic accident, which led to the closure of my transport company. So I have had these setbacks coming in time and again. 2019, I was scammed of $19,000. Then in the process, I lost a deal of $40,000, which was then cancelled. So I have had all these setbacks, coming in back and forth. But ultimately, I would say, the journey has been pretty interesting. Yeah.
And I think the most important thing is overcoming it. You've managed to overcome all these setbacks. And I think for a lot of people who are starting up in their entrepreneurship journey, let's start from the aspect of when to let go. Because I'm sure there's some businesses that you're doing and just realized, okay, here I'm making a loss, this is not working out. At what point do you say, maybe now I need to just let go of this, it's not working out, let me try something else? Because others feel when it's not working out, it's time for you to try harder. You keep trying harder, but you're still making losses. So at what point do you say, enough is enough, let me try something else?
Well, that's a tough question. And unfortunately, it's actually a case-by-case question. There are certain businesses that have actually run for a much longer time before letting go. And ultimately, they actually came out to be successful. But here's something interesting. What helps to decide when to let go or to continue, it's when you see some future at the end of the tunnel. I don't know if I've said that right. If you're running a business and it is not yet showing signs of, if you're still making losses, but it is showing signs that there's a possibility of it working out, then you can continue in that journey. Let go of any business that if you really look at it, you are even demotivated yourself as the owner. At that point, it's the point that you then, let go. Because you can lose many things. You can lose money, you can lose a talented employee, you can lose many things. But provided you're still feeling, the fire inside you, then it simply shows that there is still some hope in that particular business. But the moment that hope is gone, you can even feel it yourself, say, I think I'm not seeing any future. It is at that point that you actually let go. And sometimes I had someone say, you see, people say, you could be seeing some light at the end of the tunnel. Sometimes it may not necessarily be light from the sun. Sometimes those could be lights from the train to come and crush you in that tunnel. So you better be very careful when you say, I'm seeing some light at the end of the tunnel, because that could be your last nail. Yeah, so really for me, it is at that point when I feel that I cannot keep pushing this and I'm not seeing any future in it, it is at that point that I let go. Yeah. But of course, it's a case-by-case scenario, really case-by-case. There is no one-size-fits-all on that. At the point for you to let go. It's pretty tough, yeah.
So from your particular stories, what were those businesses that you felt were not working out and you had to let them go?
Transport. Okay, so now here's the thing. I'm not comfortable running a business that I have no full control over. Any business that I have no full control over, I'm uncomfortable running it. Number one, the farming business, at that point, I left it for a simple reason. I had no control over pricing. So it was very difficult for me to plan. And I felt, how do I do the farming, do everything? Then at the end of the day, the person who decides the price for a crate of tomatoes is the guy from Soweto Market. I think I felt, for me, I am uncomfortable with this. So that is one that I actually let go. Number two, the transport business. The reason I let go of the transport business was that I felt I had no control again. And the reason was simple. I invested $600,000 to buy a truck. With all due respect, for one to become a driver, and I'm saying it again, with all due respect, for one to become a driver, it could be that maybe they have failed in life. There are circumstances, and I understand that, but there is that maybe someone might have, failed in life. So I invest my $600,000, buy a truck, Then call this guy and give him my truck. And it gets to be in his hands. And I have no control over it. And the funny thing with those drivers was that some of them, of course, you can insure, that's fine. But you see, they make a trip, sell tires, put old ones, and have no control over that. They make a trip, sell diesel, buy Changanya, when they actually run out of diesel, put in, and it damages the what engine. So I felt I had no control over that. So for me, it was frustration. Running a business that you have no control over is very, very difficult. So in my case, then of course we couldn't insure engines. So it was very, very difficult. So I felt it was just giving me a lot of headaches. When I would receive a call at 22, 23 hours, before picking, my heart would pound. Is it an accident? Have they arrived? Is it a breakdown? So I just felt, no, this headache was just too much for me. So that's how I just decided to let go. Yeah.
And when a business is maybe not doing so well, in the middle of you starting the whole journey, how important also is refinancing? Because people will probably think about maybe getting a loan, you pump it back into the business, maybe that will boost up the sales or somehow just increase the traction you're getting for your business. So how important is the refinancing of this? And at what point do you make that decision? Because sometimes people get into debt that they should have got in the first place. Others even discourage such things. But I know they discourage mostly for startups. So at what point is refinancing an important issue in the middle of the entrepreneurship journey?
All right. So for startups, like you indicated, I stand on the ground that as you are starting your business, it is not the best idea for you to get a loan. For a simple reason, a startup has its own challenges. There are things that you will not know of, you will not see coming, and it always happens. Almost always happens. You can do your research, do everything. Something will just go wrong. Something will just go wrong. And you meet surprises. Now, surprises differ. Now people are laughing. It seems they can relate. And the funny thing is, the level of shock is dependent on the research that you have done. So you can do your research, you can get the best team, you can get everything right. Start it, the business has its own mind. So you have your mind, it has its own mind. You are pushing this way, it is going this way. When you are starting, it is already... Even the richest man in Zimbabwe, Strive Masiyiwa, invested $300 million, came here, started Kwese. You saw Kwese? Invested that. Those are not small guys. They have the money. Pushed in the money, pushed in marketing, billboards everywhere. Everything was said. Where is Kwese now? It is gone. Why? Every startup, no matter how powerful you are, it has the chance of failing. So if you start with a loan, then you fail with loaned money. Now you will feel the pinch. So if you're starting, I would advise, don't even think of starting with a loan. Start with your money. Do the learning curve with your money. Then in the process, see how you can then position yourself. But then once you have started moving, there is nothing wrong with you getting a loan. In fact, this is a bracket statement. It is almost impossible to grow a business, to grow a business exponentially without financing. It could be a loan, it could be equity financing. If you are thinking of pushing it to the next level, inevitably you need a loan. But then at what point do you get a loan? You get a loan to build your business, not to start your business. Like take for instance, if I'm running a business and my turnover is 50,000 kwacha, then I get an order of 500,000 kwacha, and I have no means of financing that. The loan is the way out. It is the only way out, and it is the cheapest way of financing. So getting a loan is not a problem. It is, in fact, you cannot grow your business to a certain level without a loan. That is why all the big companies, almost all of them have loans. All of them.
But what if you've been, you know how this business works. For example, if I'm running a bar and I've been running it for maybe almost 2 years, I know how it goes, but I've just not been paying as much attention to it. But I know what the business involves, but I want it to reach to a certain level. So do I still regard it as a startup still, even though I know how these things work? Do I still regard it as a startup if I want to refinance? I'm now taking it serious. I want to boost my sales. I want to restock up the place. Do I still regard it as a startup based off the attention I've been giving to it?
Wow, that's a tough question, because then it would call for us to define what a startup is. Now, definitions are really different and they truly vary. And that is why, even when it came to us saying what is a big company and what is a small company, it is again very difficult for us to say. The companies that we regard as big here are very small relatively. And the people that we call rich here are very poor relatively. That is why when we say, no, we have rich people in Zambia, we're not the top 100 richest Africans, we have no Zambian there. So it says something, that some of these things are a bit relative. But the basic principle, at the point that you should then begin thinking of getting, finance, is at the point that you now understand your business. You know that, okay, fine, if I get this, I'll supply at this. If I get that, it will give me this much profit. If I do this, you now understand your business. Whether it is big or small, that is relative. Because we can start businesses at the same time. My business within 1 year, 1 year, 6 months, maybe it has a turnover of 20 million kwacha. Yours has been in existence for 5 years, and your turnover is 300,000 kwacha. Which one is a startup between the two?
Did you answer that question?
Yeah. So, but the basic line is the point where you understand your business inside out, where now if I do this, it will lead to this. If I do that, it will lead to that. That is the point that then you can say, okay, fine, I can get a loan to do this. It has less to do with the amounts, but more to do with you understanding the business. Yeah.
All right, so very soon we're getting to you as members of the audience to ask your questions. Maybe it can be a case situation based off your personal experiences in your businesses that you're into, that you ventured into. We'll be getting to that shortly. But before we go for a very brief break, what remaining aspirations? I know I've asked this towards the end, but I want to ask this now. From everything you've done during your youth, what remaining aspirations do you have? I know for a lot of people get into business. Very soon you hear, no, you also stand as member of parliament to the side. So what's remaining for you?
I think what is in there for me is to see how I can impact lives. I think that is my wish. I have had a fair share in my business space. I've had a fair share. I've had a fair share of achievements, and I've had a fair share of failures. I wouldn't say I'm rich. I'm just there. At least I'm comfortable. At least with my experience, I would say, and clearly so, that I have achieved my childhood dreams. Now, you need to realize that dreams differ. So your dreams may not be my dreams. So for me, growing up in the village, it was my wish that I should travel, in a plane. And for us, then we'd shout at planes and say, drop us sweets the next time you pass and whatnot. But though we were saying it in vernacular. And I can say that I have literally traveled the globe. All the major countries that you might think of, the UK, the what, I have been there. So I have achieved that. I dreamed, growing up in the village, that thing where you would drive wire cars. And I remember at one time aspiring owning trucks. I owned trucks, so I did that, and I did that at 23. Building my first house, I built my first house at 24. So I've had a fair share. Walking in the showroom to buy, because we used to move with those vehicles where you push to start. You literally push to start. You struggle to start the vehicle. And that was the norm that side. So if a vehicle at our village, if you push it like from here to the back of this room, that's a brand new car. Would literally say, no, because that is what was there. So it was my dream to drive, a vehicle from the showroom, which I have done. Featuring on places like BBC and whatnot, I have been there. Listed amongst the youths that I have been there. I have had very special privileges where the deputy chairperson of the African Union, comes all the way to visit me at my office. And that was a very interesting one. We met at a certain platform, and that was in Botswana. So then he visits me just to say, young man, I'm very proud of what you're doing. So he says, I will stop over in Zambia for about 30 minutes or so. So he gets to the airport. Then I decide to drive there to go pick him. Getting to the airport, there is a convoy from COMESA. Because the man was the former, Secretary General of COMESA. And we used to learn him, actually, in civics. If you don't know his name, you fail. But then, he comes that. So I go to pick him, not realizing that there's a convoy, because COMESA knew and the government knew that he's coming in. So there's a convoy that side. I tried to see him. I was stopped many meters from him. No, you can't. So I drove back to the office. Then the convoy comes to the office. And they didn't know that he was coming to my office. So he gets to the office. We have a conversation. Now, it seems powers that be heard that, he was in the country. Then they said, so he just received a call there and said, no, from a certain house, can you pass through? Then he says, no, I'm actually flying out. And so he couldn't see and visit the house, but was in my office. So, of course, from my office, it was straight to the airport, then he left. I think those are privileges that I can look back to and say, no, I was in the village, and, I am now here. I've moved in certain countries, I think, like some of you who have actually been following for quite a while. In certain countries, I have been received by the cabinet ministers, the governor, and whatnot, and I've traveled. So, truly, for me, what remains now is to see how we can then build a different crop. That is why there is this DLN Entrepreneurship Institute. And I'm so proud to announce that there are people's lives that have been changed. Like, take, for instance, when we had the masterclass. Of course, there's banks and whatnot came in and sponsored and whatnot, but there's one person, the Palm Ridge Properties CEO, came in and pushed in a 17,000. Now, that is one of the people that I mentored. Within a space of, 2 years, her turnover was 16 million. Now, her turnover and her success is my pride. Is my pride because it then shows that, with guidance and mentorship, a number of us can become successful. Now, if a number of us are successful, it says one thing. It gives us an opportunity to then grow as a team. So seeing a number of people that are achieving so much, it gives me so much pride. I think, is that Mark? Mark Ford. I posted him on my platform. A very young man resigned, started his business last year because of the interactions, mentorship. Now he has boutiques in malls. So if you go to Liwanika Mall, you have Mark Ford. This other mall, Novera Mall, there's Mark Ford. But he's a 26-year-old guy. Now, what more if you had 100 of us doing such things? So for me, my wish is to see how we can have many more of us become successful. I think for me, I would rest well if that happened.
Amazing answer. I know somebody's going to give me a round of applause. You know, clap for him. Amazing stuff. Well, Mark, another free advertising for you, courtesy of Dumisani. But this is what this event is also all about, for us to get to network and know each other. The people from different walks of life here, different backgrounds. So it's very good to know each other. Hopefully you carried your business cards as well, so we can get to interact. And speaking of interaction, We're just going to take a breather for about 5 minutes, and after 5 minutes, we'll be interacting with Dumisani. You'll be able to ask some questions, and you'll be able to answer on this particular platform. And also, the good thing of doing this is that we're all able to learn from our experiences and get an answer from Dumisani as well. We are live on the Salome Trust Initiative YouTube channel, so be sure to also share the link and let people have this insightful conversation, even though they haven't paid. It's fine. So we'll get into the artists. I'm still at tour also as well for you to have a drink as we go for our breather. I'll be right back in 5 minutes. All right, good evening once again. We get to continue with our event this evening, getting into our Q&A. It's time for you to ask some questions to Dumisani, and very soon you'll also be available just to have a brief chat at the end of the event. So for now, we'll just take some brief questions.
Such an inspiring story. We are incredibly inspired. I'm Michi Zambia's sweetheart. So I'm a voicepreneur. I make my money from my voice. I'm on TV, I'm on radio, I do adverts. But recently, especially with the ad work or voicepreneurship, I found that it's a little bit difficult to kind of, what word should I use? For people to understand the value behind it. So if people want an advert or they want voice-over work, and I send them a quotation, they're like, but how? So I have a couple of questions in those areas, like how do you convince people that this is what you're worth and what you're worth is of value for them in the long run as what they require from me in that particular instance. That also, and in connection with the initiative, the institution, rather, do the same principles apply in entrepreneurship regardless of the industry you're in?
Wow, interesting question. So the first one, you are talking to customers that are not really seeing the value of what you are doing. Now that's a very tricky position. Our Zambian setup is still behind on many fronts. It is only now that people are willing to pay massively for TV adverts. Back in the days, if you look at the TV adverts that would actually have, they are not so impressive compared to South Africa as an example. That side, even actors who would act in an advert, they would be paid as much as 30,000, 25,000, but that is not the case here. Here it's a 2,000 or a 3,000, if not a pro bono kind of arrangement. So for the voiceover arrangement, I think people are yet to open up to realize the value of what you offer. So if we looked at our setup, we are still not appreciating, such skills, such talents. But with that said, the best that you can do is, as the industry is growing, as the sector is growing, the best that you can do then is to make sure that you are amongst the best. So that as the price begins increasing, as people are seeing the value of doing that, you may be amongst those that are valued and those that are seen as the best. Because really speaking, it is almost impossible that a voiceover artist in Zambia can be paid a 15,000 kwacha. It is not possible. It is quite tough. But in SN, not too far from here, they charge as much as 35, 40,000 rands, which in kwacha that's 60,000. That's what they do, and that is why you would see that even actors that side who perform in Isidingo, how do you call it? Isidingo? But of course that is Isidingo, the need. You would find that they drive Porsche cars. But here, actors that act in our movie industry, they don't amount to much because we are not yet there. But the best that you can do is if you make yourself exceptionally well in some of these industries that are still growing, so that when a time comes, like what is happening now for this Kaunda film which is coming in, those are films that, well, movies, if they are to take shape and you have a proper role, now you part away with some great manners out of it. But for you to have that kind of a role, you should have positioned yourself in advance. So my advice for you is that your industry is not yet there, but it is growing and it is improving. But position yourself amongst the best. I think that's what I can say. Then there was a little part of the second question. What was it? Can you remind?
Do the same principles of entrepreneurship apply
across different
other industries?
Well, to a largest extent, yes. They apply across, different industries. And that is why you can be taught on certain, so there are certain lectures that take place where everyone attends because the principles are the same, accounting principles are the same, selling principles are just about the same, digital marketing principles are just about the same, but then there is a time where you go through mentorship. So what makes us different is that there are lessons, then there is mentorship, where you then have an opportunity to then ask, direct questions and, be guided in your space. I think that is what sets us apart, the mentorship aspect. And mentorship doesn't end where lessons end. Even after lessons, we have some form of an alumni where you can still be guided. And I'm so proud to say that some of the people that are doing great, like right now, the biggest restaurant, if you go to Mongo, it is from one of our learners at the institute, the first intake. When after the lessons, he just got back to Mongo and he never looked at business the same way. In Chililabombwe, the biggest catering service providers, they are from our institute. So we now have examples dotted around of people that have done extremely well. In Solwezi, the person who is doing very, very well in this as a microfilm is from the institute. So the principles are just about the same, yeah.
All right, so another hand this side. So for the purpose of our streaming partners, I would ask that you at least stand when asking a question so that you can be audible and also on the platform. So I saw your hand up, your question for Dumisani.
Hi, Chief. Okay, where I come from, we like to use the word Chief, so excuse my language. My name is Shadrika. I've got 3 titles. I'm a student, a startup CEO, and working for MTN in the fintech. So, okay, my question is, do you have like the best career? Like you talk of education. Education as one of the things that will position you in better management of things, right? So, do you have like the best profession that you can recommend for someone to be a CEO? Of any company. Being a CEO, I'm just trying to say being in charge of something. Like maybe in sales, there's marketing, and there's just different things, accountants like you've done.
Okay, so is there a career that maybe positions you well for leadership at that level? No. I wouldn't say there is one. Why? If you looked at outstanding people that have done phenomenally well. If even locally, we can talk of the same example of the CEO for Liquid. I think he has no career in that space in terms of academic qualification. In fact, even the previous one was a lawyer by profession, if not mistaken. That lady who was there at that is at Liquid. Strive is an engineer by qualification. I am an accountant. So there is no one that fits all. You see, the formal education that you get, in fact, I've done an MBA finalizing still, I've seen the kind of lessons that are there. The value that I get from the lessons that I get from there cannot be compared to the value that I get from some of the books that I have read informally. What that then does is it disqualifies the part of saying there is this career that positions you to be a great leader. So if you want to position yourself as a great leader, there are books that might maybe help you in that space. But academic qualifications, like I indicated, position you well and position your brain to be super trainable. I think that is where the key is. So there is no career that I can truly say this particular one. But MBA seems to be, doing it for most.
All right, we have a question right next to me here.
Okay, thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. My name is Amos Halindi. I work for Zambia Rise. Yeah, so my question is, how important is family and close friends when you're starting a business? Because I think I've noticed or seen some members where it's written no credits and stuff like that, and there are those family members who have a tendency of trying to bring you down, trying to get things on credit, they don't want to pay back, or just want to get something for free because you're a family person. I'm asking that because I want to find out if you are supposed to have two characters for the family and as a business person. So how do you distinguish that?
All right. When running your business, I think it is extremely important to separate yourself from the business and run it as such. The issue of relationships is what has brought people, down. No, this is my what, and this is my what, and I can sell on credit, and that has brought a number of people down. And not just credit issues, even just helping out. I've shared before to say, over helping family, friends, and churchmates has stunted businesses and has brought many people down. There are people whose businesses would have become really great, but they have amounted to nothing much because the owner of the business stunted it by overhelping in the name of being a savior to the family, and the business ends up failing. And I shared this before that for those that follow the page, but for the sake of those that don't, I have an elder brother. So growing up in the village, my elder brother, from the little money that he would make, he would then, buy relish home, buy eggs, buy that and what. And my parents said something, and I feel they said it from their sincerity. They said, we feel this one is going to take care of us and not you. Why? Because he was generous, and myself, I was seen to be stingy. Wakaso, But for me, the picture was bigger. It was to save my family from poverty. Many years later, when I bounced back, of course, my elder brother didn't achieve so much. In fact, he actually became the first driver for my very first truck. But that is not the story. But the story is this. When I was then able, the business had grown, I could easily help my family quite easily without worrying. I've taken all my siblings to school. I bought my father his first vehicle in 2018, 2017, 2018. And from the time I bought him a vehicle, he's never worried about fuel. He's never worried about servicing it. I take care of that because I can afford that. And it was only last year when I started building them their dream house, 5 bedrooms, how do you call this suite thing? Where bathrooms are in the bedrooms. But there's a word that sounds suite or something. Suite, yeah. So they chose 5 bedrooms, and I was even wondering, but I didn't question them because it was their dream. Because I was wondering, but I mean, we have left you. Why are you still going for 5 bedrooms, really? But it is like, okay. And I could easily do that now. Why? The business has grown, and I can afford without any worries. But the challenge that we have is you are just starting, and you want to act up like a savior for the family. And you notice one thing, when you make money, funerals will be there. This one was Americareza. You know, like, those are stories that are there. Money has the way of just going out. But notice one thing, even if you died today, you think you are a savior. If you died today, the family will still survive without you. So what then makes you think you are a savior?
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Timothy. I think the first time I met you was in 2019 at the Africa Must Think conference. So one of the things you alluded that time was whatever you want to start, you have to add value to yourself. I've always admired to be a professional speaker, but then I followed the channel and said add value, fine. Got the papers from Solusi. And then my question is, now that there are papers, because I've done a case study, if you follow Chiwambakanyama, Garamkani, Rogers, and then there's you who actually represents the youths who are almost jumping into professional speaking. My question is, how then do you break through in the corporate? Because yes, I do digital content, you know, but then how do you break through into the corporate so that you can get gigs and teach people, depending on what you've studied? Yes.
All right, so that is if you're to become a professional speaker.
Yes.
Okay, your wish is to see how you can reach a level where corporates or maybe people can hire you to speak.
Yes.
Ah, okay, okay. Wow, that's a very interesting question. I had no intentions of becoming a speaker to begin with. I had no plans of becoming a speaker for a number of reasons. I grew up stammering. I couldn't finish words, waste sentences. So I never dreamed of being a speaker. But when I realized that I could speak, I think in my 20s, that's when I could speak really. I just found, I don't know, this thing is nice. So all these guys have been enjoying this from childhood, and I didn't have an opportunity. So for me, it was, fun. Then the thing that led me to begin speaking on entrepreneurship is the same incident in France. And I had no intentions of actually becoming a speaker even then. What led me to become a speaker, so that you just understand, was that from then I thought of inspiring people. So I began sharing with individuals on how to run businesses. Then from then on, I started a page in 2017 so that I could share on Facebook to say you can run the business this way, you can name the business this way. Simple basic things, the front end, back end, this is what I did, this is how you can do it. Then from then on, I realized that a number of people were really following, and a number of people wanted to meet me. Then it was at that point that I said, well, I cannot meet everyone, because for me, speaking is not what I do to make money. I have a business to run. So then I talked of having the first conference. So I had the first conference in 2018, how to become a radical entrepreneur. And it had nothing to do with making money. In fact, it was at a total loss at Mulungush, but attendance was great. Then 2019, Africa Must Think, I had a country tour, but it might interest you to note that I made a loss of over 40,000. But for me, putting in money was not an issue, because it was now passion that I needed to change lives. So it was from then that, based on the content I was sharing, because it was practical, because I have run businesses from scratch to become successful, then people could sit and listen to me. Then that's when I realized that I could be invited then across Africa to begin sharing on entrepreneurship. It was afterwards, actually, that there's an event where I spoke. There were people from the US. For me, it was free. So for me, it was fun. After sharing there, so there were speakers from the US, some from Nigeria, Ghana, from different countries, very powerful people. So I was also there, from Zambia. So after the presentations, people would literally queue up to ask me questions, maybe because my presentation impacted them. But here's something that I learned afterwards, that those guys who people wouldn't, go to ask questions were actually charging $10,000. I was like, so these guys, what they did, they are paid $10,000, and I'm not paid anything. It was from then that I then began charging, and I pegged myself at $5,000. So when you see me hold the mic, for those times that I've traveled out of the country, for every hour that I speak, it's $5,000, and it is standard. Now I can be paid because I have shown that I have value. So now, in your case, before people listen to you, the question is, why should they listen to you? If you answer that question, then you would have answered everything. Why should people listen to you? What have you achieved for them to listen to you? Okay, fine, maybe let us forget about achievements. How good are you? What is it that you have that people do not have? Do you know why we pay at school? It is because lecturers know more than ourselves. That is why we pay tuitions. How much more do you know than everyone else for them to pay you? So before they invite you for those gigs, you might put yourself at that level and make yourself exceptional. And what you've done even here is a step in the right direction, because now I know you. And by the way, you looked familiar. I kept looking at you, I'm like, I've seen this guy, but I just couldn't remember where. Yeah, so you are in the right track. It will not come today. Oh, and by the way, and I'll share this. The first event that I had that was profitable was the master class. Who attended the master class? It was the first event that I had that was profitable. I've never had an event in Zambia that was profitable. And it was for a simple reason. Banks came in, ZICB, without pleading, they came in and said, you want to be part of what you're doing, 45,000. Prudential came in, we want to associate with your brand, 45,000. And some government institutions also came, 45,000. Even the same lady that I was talking about, the one that I used to mentor, I said, no, you're having an event. How can I help? Can I please just put in a 17,000 just to help you? She came in with a 17,000. Even on the day of the event, Chloride Zambia, Exide Batteries came in at 10 hours when the event was starting at 12 hours, and came in and just threw 20,000. That was the first event that we had that was profitable. Why? Because now people have seen that there's value. So things will not turn around overnight. Start it, begin speaking at your local church, and pick it up from there. Then people identify you. Then you reach a point where you'll be invited out and around.
My name is Aaron Mandela, and I'm a poultry farmer. So I'd like to find out from you, how have relationships with prominent people helped you in business? For instance, you're friends with the former head of state, Dr. Mwencha and Dr. Pimpion.
All right. Our relationships are key. They play a pivotal role. The people you are associated with have a direct impact on your value, like direct. So you are there, he associates with me, my influence somehow rubs on him. If he posts a picture and we are together, it says something. So if I post a picture and I'm with the former head of, I've posted pictures with many people. Why are you saying the head of state? Why? Because his influence is rubbing on me, and now you are looking at me in a certain way. So it's a natural thing. And that is why, you see, there are people that I respect, men that I respect, not that they have anything to offer, but because of the wife that they are married to. You're like, but how? I think there must be something about this man. Maybe it is me with a problem. I just can't see. Why? Because he's associating with, a very beautiful, powerful lady. So associations play a role indirectly. And that is why people that go to get tenders, sometimes you would find that maybe the head of state is somewhere. If there is a picture where the head of state is showing, and they are showing, whether it's in the background or what, that is enough for the tender. As you talk to the MD for this parastate, you say, no, you see the economy or whatever topic, you see here, I was with the head of state, and the signal is passed to say, listen up, that is my level. So associations play a role indirectly. Then directly, they also play a role. There are people that I have come to meet in certain other countries because there was a word from the deputy chairperson, or maybe there was a word from this powerful minister there was a word from this other person. I think because of that, it has made life a bit easier. If you wanted to meet someone, who would you want to meet in Zambia who is very, very powerful? Oh, okay. Maybe putting myself aside, I think I can give an example. Today, I was doing mentoring for the learners at the institute. So I spoke to one lady who is a Sikutwa by surname. So as we were, discussing, then she tells me that she runs this power of construction business. She's the CEO. That it didn't click on the surname. I have always wanted to meet Lawrence Sikutwa, the owner of Madsen. But I've never just had an opportunity to meet him. And we've never just crossed each other's paths. Not that I've actively pursued it, but it has never just happened, but he's one of the people that I've wanted to meet. So then this lady says, no, I'm the daughter to, you are the daughter to. Then she says, no, I look up to you and whatnot. Says, no, organize a meeting. I would like to see your father. Yeah. So she's never met me. And she's like, no, I'll call the PA right now. And he wasn't meeting people, but definitely he'll meet you. But here's a man that I've never met. Very powerful man, prominent man. But now I'll meet him for a simple reason. Because I've associated with the daughter. So connections are just important. And that was just today. So, yeah. Now, if you're connected to me, you get to meet a number of others. And if you meet those, then they also lead you to others. And by the way, any powerful person in the world, however powerful they are 5 people away from you. Just 5. Obama is 5 people away from you. You call this one calls that one, that one calls that one. By the 5th, you are speaking to Obama.
My name is Bamwani Vola. I run a mobile business. I'm in the beauty industry. So I have 2 questions for you. The first one is, how best can I build my business when the market is already saturated? And the second question is, what are the key factors of building a business?
Yeah, that's a tough one because you are getting in a red ocean. The market is saturated and you want to get in that space. So for you to be exceptional in that kind of a setup, there are 3 things that might possibly set you apart. When you get in that red ocean, it's either your quality is better, your service is faster, or you are cheaper. The 3. Did you get that? It's either your quality is better, your service is faster, or you are cheaper. So if you get in that space then, but better if you could even have all the 3, then that would be great. But if you get on one, if your quality is exceptional, at least you have something that you can, point at and say, okay, fine, this is the thing, we are better in this way and that way. Number 2, if your service is better, like faster, then that gives you an opportunity to reach out, because that is then your niche, to say you are faster than others. So if you're in the beauty industry, if your makeup is outstanding, there are a lot of people are doing makeup. It is like photography, people buy a digital camera and it is what photography. But if your pictures are exceptional and your videos are exceptional, that will sell for you. 1. 2, if your delivery is faster, that also, sets you apart. Or if you can offer the same quality but at a cheaper price, then that then positions you better. I think if you can look at those 3 very, very well, I think it would be quite helpful for you. I think there's something that would have gotten much more in details in, and I should confess actually, that my thinking was that I'll come and make a presentation to you guys. It seems there was a miscommunication. It was not supposed to be question and answer. I thought it would be a presentation. So there was something that I wanted to drill in on how you can create, the why. Because pricing is manipulation. It is not something that holds for long. So if you do If you dwell on pricing, it is just a way of manipulating. If you dwell on promotions, no, get one, buy two, get one free, it works in the short term, but that is still manipulation. If you use influence, now, which is now what people use, if Biflo is using this, then you can use this. I don't know if you see how Colgates would work, show a doctor and whatnot. That is influencing. That is still manipulation. So there are all these manipulations that people use, which work, but they work in the short term. But if you are to get in the long term, you then have to answer the why. Now, the why is what speaks to the limbic brain. So there is the part of the brain. Okay, let not get into details. There is the part of the brain that analyzes, figures, one that is, rational. That is one part of the brain. Then there is, now this part is the part that you communicate to when you say, no, this phone has 2 GB RAM, it has what. That information goes to that part of the brain. Then there is the other part of the brain, which is the limbic brain, which then talks about emotions. Now, most of the decisions, now that part of the brain is the one that makes most of the decisions. But the language is on this other part of the brain. So the part of the brain that makes decisions cannot communicate. Like, it is not in charge of the language. That is why you make decisions which you cannot explain. Okay, it's a tough one. Maybe let me see a hand of one who is married. Okay, maybe the lady at the back, someone? Sampa. Maybe, why did you marry your husband?
Several reasons that I can list.
Okay. Pick one main one.
Besides the fact that he's incredibly handsome.
Okay.
Yes, but he's also intelligent, very intelligent, and I bounce off ideas of him, and that's one of the reasons why my business has been so successful.
Beautiful. Does her answer make so much sense? How many handsome men do we have around, and why him?
Because, like I mentioned, I bounce off ideas of him, and it resulted in the very obvious success of my business.
Okay, so now you said two very interesting things. She said he is intelligent and he is handsome. But here's the thing. There are many men who are intelligent and handsome. Now, what you are basically trying to do is to justify, to rationalize a very emotional decision. So there are decisions that we make, especially love decisions. You can't explain them because people say, no, I love the smile. What is there to love about the smile? No. So you are trying to rationalize a decision which is made from the limbic side of the brain. So now, to answer your question, you need to then get on how you can communicate with this side of the brain that makes decisions, so that one can then manage to go buy Apple, which is, in fact, for those that follow, it was indicating 40,000. But truly, if you go to Apple Store, it is 50,000. But why would one go to buy a phone for 50,000? It is speaking to the inner me, which cannot, I can just rationalize it and say Apple is strong. Apple is not really strong. It is not, it's a tough thing to explain, but if I gave the whole lecture, you would understand what I'm actually trying to drive to. So you need to speak to the brain, which is the limbic brain, which is in charge of making decisions. Speak to the emotions. So, but if you are to use the logical thing, then you might choose the price, quality, and speed.
My name is Achiwa, and I'm here today, all thanks to Mark for the privilege that he brought me here. Okay, so my question is, it seems like I'm a jack of all trades and I'm a master of none, according to Mark, which is true actually. I had to acknowledge that. So what I do actually, I sell clothes, But apart from clothes, I sell watches, perfumes, I'm a car dealer, and it seems like everything always sells, but...
Car dealer?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Can you give me a call? Yeah, so it seems I'm a jack of all trades and I'm a master of none. So how can I pick one thing in which I can actually grow? Yeah, something like that.
All right. How can you pick one?
Yeah.
Okay, so let us begin from the beginning. It is extremely important that you pick one. That is the starting point. There is no single person that has become successful by doing everything. Not a single one. Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook only. Jeff Bezos, Amazon only. Jack Ma, Alibaba only. All these guys that have become exceptionally well, they hit one thing and hit it extremely well. That is what made them stand out. And I love the words that were said by one guy called Andrew Carnegie. Andrew Carnegie, of course, there's always a debate in the recent history of who was the richest guy to ever live in the recent history. And the debate has been on John D. Rockefeller and Andrew Carnegie. Andrew Carnegie's wealth now, in today's dollars, stands at $480 billion. Way richer than the top 6 richest people in the world now. That's how powerful the guy was. But he said something interesting. He said, I would rather have all eggs in one basket than watch over the basket than the usual, which says don't put all your eggs in one basket. Remember that? But him, it was, I would rather have all eggs in one basket than watch over the basket. Now, that is the thing. If you are to be exceptional, truly you need to do one thing and do it extremely well. Bruce Lee said also something very interesting. He said, you see, I don't fear a person who's done many different kicks 10,000 times. But I fear one guy who's done one kick 10,000 times. Because if that one kick finds you, you are gone. That is what he said. Then outside that, you realize that doctors who are, let me even stand. Doctors who are specialized in way more than general doctors. Doctors that are general, those that just enter there, those earn way less than those that have specialized. A doctor who's specialized in eyes only, just the eye, earns way more than a doctor who is a general doctor. Why? Because riches are in niches. So if you can hit one thing and hit it extremely well, it then gives you an opportunity to become great. Now here's the mistake that we make. We want to do many things at the same time. You want to become the jack of all trades. What that then does is, it gives you an opportunity to have many things which are mediocre. That is the opportunity that presents to you. You are not a brilliant car dealer. That is why you can't even, that's why I don't even know you. Because to begin with. Because you are not outstanding in that space. People that are car dealers, like car dealers, car dealers, those we know them. Then they even win good tenders. So in the other things that you do, again you are mediocre. How about if you did one thing and did it extremely well, such that by the time you are thinking of diversifying or getting in other things, you are diversifying after building something that can stand on its own. Once it can stand on its own, only then can you think of doing something else. And that is how nature is actually. It's a natural way of doing things. That is why when you are born, you cannot have a child when you're 6 years old. You cannot have a child when you're 10 years old. You can only be able to conceive and have a child when you're 16 years old, 17 years old. Only then can you have a child. And that is why when a plant is growing, it cannot bear fruits until after 3 years or 4 years or 5 years, depending on the kind of plant. But we are the only species that thinks of the little business has just started. It has not even reached the point of flowering. You want it to bear another one. So from the little profits, you inject in this other one. From the little profits into this other one. As a result, you end up having many different things. That is so mediocre. I think that is the starting point. And what was the second part of the question? Have I responded to your question?
Yes, you have. I was just asking which one to pick because it seems like I'm good in all of them.
No, you can't be exceptional in all of them.
Okay,
Which
except
one?
from the card dealing. But I'm good at it because I find customers.
Okay. The best that I can say on that is, amongst them, which one do you love the most? Where you find passion in doing it? Card dealing. There you go. Then go for it. And you see, you could even be outstanding because maybe you might be the only lady, the lady card dealer. Yeah. And everyone will be like, the lady card dealer. And find a way of branding yourself. And when you if you have to talk of branding, I think there is so much more that you can share. Do you know that what makes me stand out is the fact that I'm the radical entrepreneur? Yes. And not the best speaker around, and not the richest young guy around. It is just that, there are entrepreneurs, then there is the radical entrepreneur. So there's a part of branding. So, consult, and you can take it from there. All right. I think if I was to advise, I would advise one that you love doing. Amongst those that may be there. And by the way, that field that you talked about, there is nothing wrong in, because that is almost the same field. Those are not totally different things. That is the same field, and that is all media. I think that is fine. But one thing that you might wish to do is to then see one that you can pick that you really love doing and see how you can put yourself to the highest possible level, such that if people are to mention names of people that are doing that which you are doing, they should not miss you in Zambia. I think that is the key. To become so exceptional at it, such that you cannot mention 5 names without mentioning your name. But pick one that you truly love amongst them. Because you see, when you do what you love, you never feel like working. You feel like, it is like myself, truly, and if I was to be very sincere, I'm still looking forward to the day I'll work. Because for me, work is fun. I get to the office, it's like, I'm just having fun. I wake up at 04, it's like I'm just having fun. And there are certain deals where I lose and I'm actually beaten at it. And I just laugh. I see business as a game of chess. You see chess? You win some, you lose some, and they say, no, I made a wrong move there. So for me, it is fun. So for me, entrepreneurship is fun and I love doing it. So I don't feel like I'm working. So amongst the things that you might wish to pick one that you really love doing. And if you pick one that you really love doing, it will just be like, you're just having fun. And if you're having fun with your work, then it will be so fulfilling. Over and above the money, it will just be fulfilling for you.
Very, very insightful. But as we get to wind down, let's get you away from entrepreneurship and speaking with people. On a lighter note, what do you get up to for fun? What is a typical weekend like in the life of Dumisani?
Well, that's a tough one. I think I'm a boring guy to many people, but very, very interesting to myself. I like the me time. I'm a kind of guy who doesn't even put on jeans. I put on the jean for the first time, Ketes of Mark, last Friday. I think that was last Friday. Put on a jean for the first time in adulthood. Yeah, so I'm not that outgoing. I don't drink, but I'm a Christian. So Saturdays, I'm at church. Sundays, my life is just boring, man. Honestly, because I can't even figure out what I do.
So what do you wear on Sundays?
On Sundays, chinos. But I have 3 shorts also. Yeah. So, but I love traveling. I love traveling, and for the first time, I've stayed for a year without traveling. I toured, so every year I would have some of these tours where I would tour Europe, tour Southern Africa, tour Zambia. I love traveling. I love seeing new places. But really on a weekly basis, I think for me, things to do with entrepreneurship are fun. So the fun that I'm having here, the connection that I'm having here, the sweetheart of Zambia, knowing now I know the sweetheart of Zambia, I know the civil engineer, and she's actually been laughing pretty well. I don't know her name, but at least I know her, and I know him. And so I think to me, this is fun. And solving people's challenges in as far as business is concerned, to me, is fun. And by the way, I said I'm still looking forward to a day when I work. Because for me, work is fun. So, yeah.
Dumisani, thank you so much for speaking with us this evening. I think a lot of people have learned a lot. I've learned a lot. And I'm looking forward to hearing more from you in various platforms.
The pleasure is mine. I hope we'll meet again. And to the organizers, one of these months, I think let us have a session, because I had a presentation that I wanted to do, which I feel is extremely important. And it is what I was trying to explain on how people's minds work, on why you would buy certain products and not others. Why you would have, do you imagine, can you buy a phone written HP? Does it look normal? But why is it that it is okay to move from Apple laptops and buy an iPhone? Would you buy an MP3 player written Microsoft? Maybe not, but people were buying iPod. So there's a certain thing that makes it, there's something that gets to the subconscious mind, which I feel it is extremely important that people get to know on how we can make lasting brands and let people buy without manipulating on pricing, how we can make people buy even when we increase the pricing, how we can let people buy even if we got on different businesses. And I think there is so much more. So to the organizers, I think would still need that. And the people that have attended this one, I would really want them to be there so that they get that. It is extremely important, and I feel I would want you to get that so that we can change our country and change the narrative. And why it would be possible now for Mark Ford, if he moved from the fashion thing and got into a construction business, then we still followed him. There are certain things that need to be done, which I feel are extremely important. And why some people have moved from DLN Technologies and they are now with DLN Entrepreneurship Institute. What is it that makes it possible for people to follow what you do and what you say? Why would people follow me at the conferences and follow me at the institute? And what is it that is being done, which is different? And that is what I want to share with you. And these secrets are very important for a very simple reason. In our current state, I am willing to share all the secrets for a simple reason. In our current state, it is practically impossible to produce a billionaire in Zambia. Practically impossible. The only way we'll be able to produce a billionaire in Zambia is if a number of us become wealthy. So my wish is to have a number of us become wealthy in our different spheres, because that then would make it possible for the future Zambians to become billionaires. We are too small at the moment. Our GDP enters in a company, simple companies like Huawei, 5 times the whole lot of us as a country, 5 times in one company. Huawei, not even Samsung. Huawei. That is how small we are. As a country, all of us, the minds, everything. So how can you even produce and dream of producing a billionaire here? It is practically impossible. So the change begins with yourself and myself. If we became generous with information, if we supported each other, it is only then that we'll have a new generation coming in. The challenge is
we feel, no, I need to be here alone. You see, when I'm here on top alone, but you are on top of a very small hill. I have been humiliated out there. We've gone in certain meetings, and I've shared this. London, Park Plaza, I thought I had made it. The figures that chaps from Nigeria, Ghana, and whatnot were sharing there. Myself, I said, I can't even talk figures here. I converted in dollars because, dollar was the common currency. I converted what I make in dollars. I said, I can't talk figures. I just said, I'll just talk percentages. Yes. We increased our turnover by 20%. They are clapping, but 20% of what? And lucky enough, I'm an accountant, so when I was even saying, we cut down, the what. So I would use, accounting terms, and they are busy clapping. But from that side, I knew that I'm too small for these guys. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is time that we build each other. We are too small for the level of politicking that we have. As a country, we are too poor for the level of politicking that we have. How about if we decided us to work and change the narrative? I think this country will be a different place. And if we forgot about jealous and pushed for the betterment of all of us, I think we can achieve so much more. I'll share, and if you have any questions on business, when I have an opportunity, I'll give it to you. And if you came through at the institute, I'll give you all the secrets. Why? Because all of us need to be successful. That is my wish, and that is what I stand for.
Round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, thank you so much. And thank you as well for coming through for this edition, our second of the year. We're back again next month. We do this every month towards the end of the month, the last Wednesday preferably, as we have a different guest speaker to speak. And hopefully, if the organizers have taken notes, maybe we'll do a part 2 at least for that presentation, so that we're able to learn something from that. My name is Jumwega Chileshe. You can catch me on Diamond TV Monday to Friday, 6 to 8 in the morning, and also on Phoenix FM. I'm back next week from 18 hours to 21 hours, right after Michi's Time to Sweetheart over there. So be sure to tune in, and right after this is done, just feel free to also get interactive. Know each other, share some business cards, and also just get to see how best we can work together from here. Thank you so much.